continuing in the Habakkuk commentary, and then we're due the end of the Habakkuk, which shows that. Okay. Have you got a moments there when you're ready? Okay, well, the Habakkuk commentary talks about this situation where the righteous shall live by his faith, and it describes the background conflict with the Kittim, who are the Romans. So first it has in column 2 a confrontation between the righteous teacher, who is able to expound from the mouth of God the true meaning of prophecy, and the traitors to the laws of God and to the new covenant, who don't believe in the covenant of God, and some violent ones along with them, and in fact the liar who rejected the law in the midst of their entire congregation. While these internal conflicts are going on, they describe the foreign armies invading the country. This goes on for 3 columns. They shall march across the plain, these foreign Kittim, and plunder the cities of the earth. This is what is meant by taking possession of populated places which are their own. They are frightening and terrible, for their judgment and majesty proceed from themselves. Quoting Habakkuk 1:7. Interpreted, this concerns the Kittim, the fear and dread of whom is upon all nations, and in their counsel all their evil plotting is planned in advance. They deal with all peoples with cunning and deceit. Their horses are swifter than leopards, more swift than wolves. Their horsemen ride, hurl themselves from afar. They swoop down like an eagle, the Roman eagle, anxious to eat, and come to do violence, and the breath of their faces is like the east wind. This is all interpreting Habakkuk 1:8-9. This concerns the Kittim, who trample the earth with their horses and pack animals. They come from afar, from the islands of the sea, to consume all peoples. Like an insatiable eagle, they speak to all peoples with anger, ill will, fury, livid faces. This is what is meant. The breath of their faces is like an east wind. They scoff at kings and ridicule leaders. You see, this goes on for several more passages. I'm going to get to the key one in a moment. But you see, this is no small army. This is not the Seleucid Empire. This is not the neighboring Syrians. This is a mighty empire. They come from afar. It's either Alexander the Great, which it isn't, or it's the Romans, which it is. And we'll see that it's the Romans from a passage that we're going to come. So once again, internal evidence trumps external evidence. Here we have internal evidence that despite what any paleography says, any archaeology might say, or any carbon testing, because they are subject to great variations in precision, which is not sufficient in terms of the margin of error to rule out the interpretations we have here. Regardless of what they say, this is a picture of the Roman imperial army, and we'll see that presently. If I could read you some more of the description of the Kittim, who are so horrendous. They ridicule leaders. They jeer at the mighty. They sneer at honorable men. They deride kings and ministers. They make light of large armies. They batter down earthworks. They circle fortified cities. We have this all here. The interpretation concerns the leader of the Kittim, who despise the fortresses of the peoples. The fortresses of the peoples are the fortresses of the Herodians. The peoples, I told you, are code for Herodians. So Masada is a fortress of the people. All the other fortresses, Hyrcania, Machaeros, Cypros, all these fortresses, they say, they despise these fortresses, laughing at them contemptuously. With a mighty host they encircle and capture them. They throw terror and fear, their surrender into their hands. They destroy them because of the sins of their inhabitants. Interestingly enough, this is the cry in the New Testament, that it's because of the sins that they are destroyed, a little bit like the New Testament. In their guilty council house, meaning the Senate, the leaders of the Kittim pass by one man following the other. Most people think this is the year of the 3 emperors, 68 A.D. After Nero was killed, there were a succession of generals who came one after the other until Vespasian took over the emperorship from his army in Palestine and left his son Titus to run things. So here we get to the key things now about who these Kittim are. First, there's a passage about the liar, switching back to another concern internal ideological adversary, denying the law in the midst of their whole assembly. And now we go back to the Kittim, column 5 and 6. And you deal with men like the fish of the sea, the creeping things, to rule over them. And you take up with a fish hook, catching them in a net, collecting them in a dragnet. This is why he sacrifices. This is why he rejoices, celebrates, burns incense to his dragnet, since by them his portion is fat and his eating is plenteous. Okay, that's the passage from Habakkuk 1:14 to 16. Its interpretation, that's why this is called a pesher, concerns the evil ones of the rulers of the Kittim, who collect the riches with all their booty, like the fish of the sea. Here's the fish of the sea imagery. But now it means the booty of the Roman that the Romans take from all the nations in the east. As for what they said about sacrificing to his net and burning incense to his dragnet, its interpretation is that they sacrifice to their standards and worship their weapons of war. There's only one army that we know in the history of the early days, ancient times, that sacrificed to their standards after every victory and worship their weapons of war, the Roman army. This is a perfect description of the Roman army. This is 1st century. Why? Because in the 1st century, after Augustus was deified, the emperor's bust was on these standards. They sacrificed and they adored them. But we even have more here. So we know this is the Roman army. His portion is fat, his eating is plenteous, from the back in the prophecy. This eating and fatness is interpreted in the following manner. They parcel out their yoke and their taxes. That is, they do tax farming. They parcel out to petty rulers their yoke and their taxes. This is their portion. And they consume all the peoples in the east, year by year, giving many countries over to the sword. Therefore, this sword is always unsheathed, and the Kittim destroy many by the sword, young men, grown-ups, and old people, women and children, and they have no pity even on the fruit of the womb. These are so violent and so merciless. In the Josephus' description of the conquering of the towns around the Sea of Galilee, he describes how the Sea of Galilee ran red with the blood of the defenders. But he also describes how they took no mercy on old people or the fruit of the womb, that they killed all the pregnant women, killed all the children in their womb, killed all the old people, and only took the able-bodied men into slavery, that they divided up between Titus and the Herodian leader. The Herodian ruler, Agrippa II, could sell them in the slave markets of Egypt. Titus took them to Greece and used them to work on the Corinth Canal. But the women, the old people, and the babes in their wombs, they showed no mercy for. This is a description of the Romans with terrible remorselessness. Okay, sorry guys. Can I read this last passage of this doctrine? No good. Okay.